You're listening to Travel Tales with Fergal.
Did you know immediately when you saw them? I mean, they were raw, I presume.
Well, I didn't know they were going to be superstars. I thought they were a good band. I thought the first song's great, second song's really good, the third song, fuck, I'm going to sign them. And then Liam Gallagher went, all right, well, you know, this is a Beatles song. And I went, oh, fuck, this is going to be terrible. And it was amazing. In the beginning, you were just hoping that people would get it. And then, of course, people fucking did get it, you know what I mean? And that's when things get exciting, you know?
You just heard the voice there of music industry legend Alan McGee talking about discovering and signing Oasis. Alan is one of the most influential figures in the history of British music. After setting up Creation Records in the 80s, his label was behind era-defining albums from The Jesus and Mary Chain, Primal Scream, My Bloody Valentine, and of course Oasis. His life has been turned into a movie called Creation Stories by the Trainspotting team of Danny Boyle and Irvine, Welsh, and the premiere is this week in Sky Movies. Alan speaks in the podcast about how he irrevocably changed the face of British culture.
Who is Alan McGee?
Alan. Oh, you Alan McGee? Alan McGee. Let's rewind. I'm going to be a millionaire one day. Thank you, Glasgow. Good night.
Have you got your sister's makeup on? If I so much as hear you mention those sexy pistols, you'll wish you were never born.
You look ridiculous. Do you have any more bands on your label? I knew we could take over the world. I have a dream. We're going to be bigger than you two. Every now and then a band comes along that changes your life. Like to welcome to the stage, Oasis.
You had one of the biggest bands in the world. Where does it go from here?
Call it what it was. It was a breakdown.
I make things happen.
Be a punk. Be a rebel always. There's always something to rebel for. What is this film, a documentary?
No, it's a biopic. Forrest Gump means boys in the hood.
Don't want to forget that. Hit the old record. No, I was going to say Dawn Hindle was another person who she ran Manumission. She owns Pike.
Right. That Pike's voice. Yeah. I've never been to Ibiza. Not that I remember.
Have you not? Because that was one of my.
I don't think
that was actually going to be one of my questions. You know, say with Screamadelia, and you introduced the guys to Acid House. So I thought.
Do you know why I probably never went? Probably never went because I thought it was too commercial or something like that. God knows, I'd never went.
Because you were big into it, weren't you? At that stage, I mean.
Mad, yeah. I don't know why I never went. God knows.
So that was peak time with the Hacienda. And Andrew Weatherall, I mean, he's just one of the best DJs of all time, really, isn't he?
He is, Fergal. Yeah, no, he was great. I knew Andy, not well, but I hired him, and I suppose I helped give him his break ultimately. And he gave us our break. Do you know what I mean?
True.
But he was a great DJ. I mean, I still listen to his mixes to this day. Do you know what I mean? You know.
So do I actually.
Do you? Right, great.
Because they're actually timeless. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they are, man. Yeah, they are.
So you originally started, obviously, you were in Glasgow in the 80s. Yeah. Quite amazing that you were actually in school with Bobby Gillespie then at the time, weren't you?
Yes, I was like, he's like, I've got one older friend than Bob, you know, but I mean, Bob's a very, very long-standing friendship. I mean, I was 12 and Bob was 11, you know, and we've been friends ever since then, you know.
A story that I love is your gig you brought him to was Tin Lizzy.
Well, yeah, they were good, but it's like, it was funny. It was like Phil Lynott was doing that with a bass and he was shining. It was like the light was coming, it was hitting his reflector and the light hit Bobby Gillespie. And Bobby was like, oh, I've been anointed. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, no, the light hit you in the face, Bob. Do you know what I mean? So that was Bob. You know, he's always been a bit like that. A dreamer, man.
I always think it's interesting, like these people, you know, that who are attracted to each other, that are connected. I mean, you obviously have that connection. I mean, your whole careers have been so interconnected all the way through.
I don't know if I could have done it. You know, I don't know if I could have got off creation in the 80s and the 90s off the ground off the ground without Bobby, really. And then I don't know if he could have got the band off the ground without me. It was kind of very codependent.
Did I see that he was doing like, creating album covers and stuff? Was he involved with you at the start?
But he worked for a printer,
Okay.
Fergus. You know what I mean? Like it was like, he was getting them printed up. Yeah, and he designed a few single sleeves. Do you know what I mean? His calling was definitely, singing and writing songs.
So it must be amazing. Like, you've a movie coming out. It's coming out in March, isn't that right?
Yeah, right? March the 20th, Fergus. Yeah.
So isn't that amazing that is it surreal having a movie coming out in yourself?
Well, I mean, it is, but the truth is, I don't actually hate it, so I can live with it. Yeah. So I'd call that a success because I can actually live with it. You know what I mean?
The Trainspotting team, isn't it? Denny Boyle is producer.
Yeah.
Irvine Welsh is a writer.
Yeah. Nick Moran's the director.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ewan Bremner plays me.
Who was Spud in Trainspotting.
Yeah. And Thomas Turgis, the guy for This Is England, plays Dick Green,
So that'll be
and
amazing.
Richard Jobson of the Skids plays my dad.
That must be the surrealist one.
No, I'm friends with Jobson, and when Ewan Bremner was the one that got Jobson in it, and he went, let's get Richard in to play Alan's dad. He couldn't find anybody suitable. And then the minute went, Jobson for your dad, and I went, brilliant. Fucking let's get Jobson,
So you're happy with the results. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
So to go back to Glasgow, so you were with Bobby, you were quite amazing at the time when you think, Primal Scream, well, he started around that time. Did Jesus and Mary Chains were in Glasgow at the same time?
Yeah, man. That was, everybody came out. I suppose, in truth, Orange Juice were the pioneers of that whole thing. And then we were the second wave of that. Creation and the Mary Chain and the Primal. So that was a kind of second wave of that Glasgow band coming through. And I suppose we were the indie alternative version, and then the major bands that were coming through around that time were all the obvious ones like Love and Money and Hipsway and the Bluebells and all that. And I like a lot of that stuff actually, but there was two kind of like, we were like more like the indie DIY part of it, you know what I mean?
Which kind of came out of punk, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Well, all these guys in the major bands from the 80s in Glasgow, they all did come out of punk. I mean, I'm still mates to this day with the guy, Robert Hodgins for the Bluebells, but he was around when me and Bobby were like little punks in Glasgow. We knew Robert then. He's now known as Bobby Bluebell, but a big songwriter now, like incredible success, written for everybody. But he wrote most of the Texas hits. But he wrote loads. He's bigger than that. He wrote so many hits, that guy. But he came out of the same thing as us. He was just out of the punk thing,
And do you think it came out of Glasgow? It was a tough working class town at that stage. Do you think it came out of that as well, the music?
I don't know. I think we were just punk kids, and who'd have thought that Bobby could write international hits? Who'd have thought Bobby Bluebell could have written international hits? Who'd have thought I could manage international bands? We didn't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't know.
Like at that stage, did you think you were going to get into the music industry? Did it just happen stage by stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wanted that, but we had no idea that we were going to do that. You know what I mean? You don't, you just get on and do it,
Creation Records, I mean, I saw a great line that is sort of the Motown of the North. Quite amazing when you think of the bands that you signed, like with My Bloody Valentine, Primal Scream, Oasis.
Well, I mean, I like what I like. I mean, I still like what I like. I've got a band for Ireland now.
Have you?
The Clockworks. Yeah. Have you heard of them?
I have. They're brilliant.
From Galway.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, I've signed them. And I've got all the majors trying to sign them off me and all that sort of stuff. So that's going on now, even in lockdown,
I didn't realise that they were Irish. They remind me of a cross between Fontaines DC and Joy Division.
That's fair play. That's kind of roughly what it is, A bit more pop than any of that, I mean, they're kind of pop songs, aren't they, as well? But a little bit more radio. But it's what it is, Yeah, I've signed them. Yeah.
When you go to a gig, Do you know within 5 minutes? Do you know when we do go again?
Oh yeah, I know within a song. Yeah, if you're great or not, just about. Yeah.
I do comedy promotion. I used to go to Edinburgh every year. I always say
Yeah.
like it was so hot during the gigs that within the first 5 minutes I'd either fall asleep, and if I hadn't fallen asleep in 5 minutes, I knew they were
Yeah.
good. You kind of know
Brilliant.
straight away, don't you? For Oasis, then, I mean, that's so famous, that story. Like you saw them in Glasgow, am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, trotted up to see this girl that I was kind of seeing at the time, Debbie Turner, and on and off kind of thing. And she brought the Gallagher's along because they were in a rehearsal room, and it was meant to be. Do you know what I mean?
Did you know immediately when you saw them? I mean, they were raw, I presume.
I didn't know they were going to be superstars. I thought they were a good band. I thought the first song's great, second song's really good, the third song, fucking going to sign them. And then Liam Gallagher went, all right, well, this is a Beatles song. And I went, oh, fuck, this is going to be terrible. And it was amazing. And then I was like, and then it began like that, I went and shouted, said to the sound guy who actually had worked for me, a guy called Mark Coyle. And he'd worked for me for Teenage Fan Club, and you'd like this, but he got the sack by the Teenage Fan Club for basically getting in the way of business, because basically every time me and him would hook up, would do coke. and then so I went in, and Coyle was up with Oasis, and he was doing the sound. And he'd got the sack for the Teenage Fan Club for doing cocaine,
Were they wild? I mean, at that stage, Oasis, dealing with them must have been...
No, I mean, they were no more than what you would expect from working class kids from Manchester in 1993. They were like, that's what it was like. I mean, they were like a little bit leery, but not much. I mean, Noel was a hustler, you know what I mean? Liam was a dreamer, but Liam was 19 when I met him. But Noel was a hustler. He was 25 and wanted to become successful and rich and famous. Do you know what I mean? And that's what Noel was like,
So he had that drive from the start.
Yeah, he did. He's still got it, It's just a bit more refined now because he's become richer than all the rest of us now.
You had him for the first 3 albums, am I right in saying that? Yeah. That they were with Creation?
No, I sold the company to Sony after 2000. But I was with them for 3 albums, yeah. And the B-sides record, do you know what I mean? So, I was with them for 7 years. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, that was peak time. I mean,
yeah.
Like when their first album was coming out, I remember I was in London actually that summer before it came out, and I was with a guy who had tickets for the gig, and he was saying these guys are going to be massive, and
They were.
Yeah, exactly. I remember going, flip, I should have gone to that gig, I mean, they were, did you know like that they were going to take off?
I knew they were, after a certain point you did, but in the beginning, you were just hoping that people would get it. Do you know what I mean? I knew they were brilliant. I mean, when I first saw them, I thought they were good. And then after a bit, I thought, I hope they're brilliant. I hope that they're going to be brilliant. But, and I just wanted people to get it. And then, of course, people fucking did get it, you know what I mean? And that's when things get exciting,
I read a line and it was like, I think it was talking about the year you signed Oasis, and it was like the only thing you remember from that year was the day you signed Oasis. So was it a mad time?
True. Yeah, I mean, that was it was snowing all year,
But was it just, so it was just adrenaline and going nonstop partying?
No, it was drugs.
But was it partying drugs, or was it just to keep you going, or what was it? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I can't really remember. I think it was just being an addict. It just, it was just crazy,
And do you think that it hindered or affected you? I know it did, but also
it got in the way. But I don't know if I mean, if I hadn't got into the ecstasy thing in the 87. Would I have got into Acid House? I probably wouldn't have. So it was all part of the journey. Do you know what I mean?
Like I was reading recently about David Bowie, the Tin White Duke era. I think it was just cocaine and milk. and he did some of his best music at the time,
Oh, yeah. Well, I signed Oasis when I was like, I'd just come off the crack pipe. Do you know what I mean? But they weren't really called crack in 1993. It was called freebase and cocaine. Do you know what I mean?
So tell us that period with Oasis, you know, touring with them, then that was like another level from anything else that you would have been.
Yeah.
You know, that must have been mad, was it? With like Nebworth and the whole.
Yeah, I wasn't really involved in the touring thing because I wasn't their manager. I was their publisher and their record company.
Yeah.
I was never their manager. But yeah, I mean, it was great showing up at these big venues. It got really exciting from about Earl's Court on with the shows because they were big, you know. It was good.
And when was that Earl's Court on? When was that one? That was 94.
No, 95.
No,
that was just on when we put out What's the Story, Morning Glory. And they done 2 nights at Earl's Court, 20,000 people a night. Yeah, it was fantastic. You know,
so that must have been, because I remember that gig I was on. That was like in 94. So that was, you know, just before they went big. But they were one of the biggest in the world at that stage, really, weren't they? It must have been crazy, like from the point of view of Creation Records.
Yeah, that was great.
So what happened? Like you moved on then, sold to Sony. When was that? In 2000, was it? Or?
In 2000, I done the deal and I got fed up with the Sony corporate politics. And then I went and started this other company called Pop Tones. And I started the management company back up again because that was one of the reasons I left, because I wanted to start managing people. And they wouldn't let me because they'd stopped me managing people for about 8 years. So then I went and started Creation Management up. And
so do you love that then? Do you love the management side of the business?
I do like it. Yeah, I do like it. Yeah.
And you've involved with Happy Mondays, Black Grape, right? Then that Sean Ryder. That must be. Yeah. And are you still involved with them? I mean, that must be amazing.
Yeah, he's great.
And Cast
in Las Vegas and The View and Kyle Faulkner. So it's quite small, really, to be honest. You know what I mean? But it's only me and a couple other people helping, you know what I mean? So it's small, you know.
You've seen a million gigs in your day, like, so is there one, if I go, your most memorable gig that you were ever at, is there one that jumps out?
Clash.
Wow.
77, 78. These shows were great. Ramones, fantastic. When there were Ramones and Skids. The punk gigs for me, the punk guys are my heroes, do you know what I mean? Even though like the joke is that the Britpop thing was much sold, the sales in the Britpop era outweighed the punk thing by a million miles. But it's like, but the punk guys are my heroes, really. And when you meet Charlie Harper, you get excited. I do anyway, you know.
And the energy of those gigs were just another level, weren't they? I would assume.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
And you know, when you talk about that Britpop era, like part of that was, it was the goal, you know, Tony Blair and Labour, that was all part of it, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah, man.
Were you involved? Like, so you were kind of a big supporter of Labour then around that time, weren't you?
Yeah, I still, Labour are still my party, but it's lacked leadership for years. But I managed to change the law, the legislation of the government into getting musicians benefits. So that was good, mate, you know.
Which is massive. So
which is called New Deal for Musicians, it was called, you know what I mean?
London or England was the epicenter of music during that period, though, that 90s period, wasn't it? I mean,
it was amazing. Yeah, it was great. I mean, the 80s were fantastic as well, though. I mean, just like, I mean, my favourite period in music's the 80s, really, because Bunnyman, Teardrop, Mondays, Primals, all my favourite bands came out of that period. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the music. I'm the same. I mean, it's the music that I always listen to now, particularly during lockdown. Actually, I've noticed that I've really gone back to listening to the 80s, like you know, like My Bloody Valentine is perfect lockdown music, isn't it? Yeah. You know, actually, with that album, I wanted to ask you, like, that is now, you know, often one of the top 10 albums of all time.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Did you know that at the time? I mean, it was very different than everything.
Nobody knew. I mean, that was just, it was a very difficult record to make, but, you know, just on the level of dealing with Kevin and the expense of it. But at the end of the day, when you got the record, it was a great record. Do you know what I mean? And I'm glad that we went through the pain of dealing with the whole situation. You know what I mean? You know.
And what was that like? Because I've read that so many times that it took a long time. And
we were underfunded, Kevin spent 270 grand making it. It was money that we didn't have. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, it was painful, but we're fine with each other. Do you know? Now we've had a couple of big fallouts in the past, me and Kevin, but we're actually cool with each other, so it's all right, you know.
Yeah. And was it just recording, scrapping recording, and then re-recording again? Was that the process?
No, he was just very, very, very particular and really slow. But it's a great record, so you have to just go fair play. You know what I mean?
Definitely a classic. The Jesus and Mary chain. You were involved with them at the very start of their career, weren't you?
Yeah, and I've been involved with them 3 times.
Have you?
I signed them and was with them for 3 years. Got the sack. Then I signed them for records in 1998 and put the record out at Monkey. Then they split up and battered each other on stage and split up. And then they came and got me to resurrect them in 2014, and I managed them for another 4 or 5 years. You know, I mean, and then they sacked me again.
So it's a love-hate relationship.
It kind of is. God knows what any it's about, but I don't hate them. Yeah, it just is what it is, you know.
And when you signed them sort of back in the 80s, they went then to a label, you know, Blanqui Negro, wasn't it, for Psycho
That
Candy?
was amazing. Yeah, I was the manager. I'd done the deal, and they signed to Warner Brothers with that record. It came out on the imprint Blanco Negro, but it was signed to Warner's. And then I signed them to Creation Records in 97, 98. Put a record out, good record actually. And then I resurrected them and put them back into big venues in 2014. Did the Psycho Candy World Tour for 2 years, and then done an album, and then put that in the top 20. And that's just me. And then they sacked me, and that's just the Mary chain. That's just I think it's my relationship with them. It's just, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. We fall out, we fall in, we fall out. And
with Primal Scream, then you've always been involved with them on and off as well, haven't you? Over the years, from the very start.
Never managed them. I still publish things like Screamadelica and Give Out But Don't Give Up and stuff like that, you know.
I mean, that whole acid house scene in the 90s, you know, was a game changer. It must have been amazing to be around there, Manchester, during that period.
Yeah, I mean, it was more like London for me, really. I mean, I was up at Manchester in the weekends and I was mates with Tony Wilson, Fergus. But I suppose, like, my main contact was the Boys' Own crowd, and that was London, do you know what I mean, you know?
And obviously Tony, you know, would he have been a kind of a mentor to you, or...
As much as anybody's ever been a mentor. I mean, I love Tony Wilson. We ripped off his idea, like 50-50 deals, you know, profit split deals. As a promoter, I'm sure you're aware of that deal. You know what I mean? And you know, it was great. You know, I mean, like, Tony was a good guy, always lovely to me, always very warm and very friendly, you know.
Is there any particular country that you particularly liked touring in?
Japan, probably, because that was just a different experience. Do you know what I mean? And I've DJ'd there, and I've had some mad fucking nights in Japan. It's been great. It seems so long ago. I mean, when you sent me the questions, I was kind of trying to think. It's quite a difficult question to think about in the moment. Do you know what I mean? Actually, I'm going to reverse that. Australia, fucking loved it. Because I was there 2 years ago with the Mondays. And I was there last year with my son, just before lockdown happened in February. I went for 2 weeks down to Perth. And I was with 3 weeks with Happy Mondays in New Zealand, Australia. But Australia, I love it. I absolutely love it. Such a young vibe to that country. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing.
It's a real kind of, I know it's a cliche, but they're very, it's a sunshine place, you know, it's a real positive.
Yeah, no, it's great.
And tell us, you know, then personally traveling, actually just before that, like traveling with the Happy Mondays, is that as mad as I imagine it would be?
Not really. It's like, it used to be, but, you know, I mean, I've only managed them for 6 years now, but it's more like I travel on my own, get to the shows. Sean travels with a minder on his own, to the shows. Bez travels on his own to the shows, and then the rest of them go together. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. The management fly apart. The singer and the dancer, or whatever you want to call Bez, the character, they travel on their own, and then everybody else travels together. So with the roadies and the rest of the band, you know.
And then personally, traveling, do you consider yourself a traveler, or do you kind of end up doing so much with work,
No, I'm not really a traveller, but I've travelled a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been to America about 100 times. I mean, that's a lot. Do you know what I mean?
And do you love America?
I love America. Absolutely love it, yeah.
And what about personally then, like if you had to pick a country as your favourite for a holiday, where would you pick?
Australia, actually, because I went. That was the last place I went just before, and I've only discovered Fergus, Australia in the last 2 or 3 years. Properly discovered it. Do you know what I mean? And I love it. Absolutely love it. I love Perth of all places because it's just so. It's like a hippie place, really. To be honest, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of feels. I've been there, and it feels like it's a small. It feels like a small town. It doesn't feel like a city.
People, though, it's not that small. Do you know what
True.
I mean?
And then if you were to have a summer house, I don't know if you have one, but where would you put it abroad?
Maybe France.
And is that any particular place or?
I just like France, but I like everywhere really. To be honest, I'm not really particular about it. I mean, I've got a lot of property in Wales. I live in London. I'm in Wales at the moment, but yeah, I mean, like I like Wales. I like the UK. I like Ireland. The one place in Ireland I've never been that much to is Northern Ireland, actually. Been to Dublin 50 times, do you know what I mean? But I've only been to Belfast a handful of times, maybe 5 times or something. I haven't been to Belfast that much, you know what I mean?
And this is a tricky one, I would say, would be your best night out when you're abroad. What's the first one that comes into your head?
Well, there's been many. But I'd have to go back to Japan. I did one with BP Fallon and at Death Disco 2000. We did 2 in a row. Yeah, they flew me and BP down, and he flew in for Dublin or America, wherever he was, and I flew down for UK. And we did one in Osaka that was mad, really mad, and that was great. And then the one after that, we did 2 nights later, we did in this insane place. The Japs put you on coming at 5 o'clock at night in a almost like an art gallery, and they'd set up a kind of boxing ring in the middle for me and BP to DJ, and it became mad. It became like sober Japanese people, just throwing themselves around, about 200 or 300 of them. It was mad.
And I saw actually a great photo on BP Fallon recently. I think it was on his Instagram, and it was of you, him and Kate Moss at a Death Disco in New York. That was in the early 90s. I think it was around the time he was doing DJ for Zooropa.
Yeah, 2004, I think that picture
was it? Okay. Is there a festival abroad you would recommend people to go to?
Yeah, Coachella's great. You should go to Coachella.
Is that brilliant, is it?
It's good, yeah. That's cool. I mean, I haven't been, I say that. Yeah. I haven't been for like 15 years or something. No, 12 years, but it was always great when I was going to it.
There was something, just as a question that I always ask everybody, and it is basically, if you close your eyes and take 4 deep breaths, because we're a travel show, where would your happy place be?
I don't know why I'm saying this because I've only been 2 or 3 times. Maybe the Maldives, but I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying that because I'm in Wales at the moment. It's fucking great. So God knows, and Wales is very nice for me. London maybe. I don't know. I love London. I walk up and down the river. Lockdown's been good to me, Fergus. I mean, I've lost 38 pounds. I've went from being a fat bastard to like a kind of virgin on being a skinny bastard. Do you know what I mean?
I've seen that on. I follow you on Instagram, and
right.
So I've been following your journey, and it's brilliant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny. That's the line I was thinking. Lockdown was good to you because you got you training, didn't it?
Yeah, it got me healthy. Yeah.
And the other guy that I saw doing something similar, maybe it's inspiration from you, was Bez. No,
he's just doing. Bez is like that. Bez is. Bez is crazy. You know, Bez is like, he's out doing all that fucking, you know, riding a bike, and he's just a sport. He's a sporty guy, isn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, his energy, his engine's always running, you know, so
Totally.
it's ideal for him. And then just one last question was, you know, touring with bands. Like, did you actually enjoy touring? Like, do you like that part of the business?
Yeah, I've been addicted to it, to be honest. I've been doing it my whole life, and but this is interesting the last 10 months, because the minute I stopped touring, I've got healthy. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know, you know what I mean? I'll be interested when we go back to touring next year, that, you know, if I can stay healthy. I hope so. I think I can, because I kind of know how to eat now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing, when you're touring, it's like grabbing food before the gig and then eating late, and it's such, you have to be so disciplined, don't you? That's the really tricky thing.
Well, I was terrible, Fergus, because I changed my diet 4 years ago when I had a colitis. But I mean, with me, I would get into, like, I'd say the Mondays we're doing Glasgow or Scotland somewhere, and I'd get into the hotel and 11:30, order up a burger before room service stops and go to sleep on a burger. It's just not fucking healthy. Do you know what I mean?
You know,
what town are you in?
So I'm in Clonmel in Tipperary.
Oh, right.
In Tip. So I would, So
I've never been.
It is gorgeous. I have to say, I'm surrounded by the mountains. You know, the movie you say is coming out in March.
March the 20th.
And it's
on
going to
Sky.
It's going to be on Sky. I'm really looking forward to that.
Brilliant.
I would ask if you could please subscribe to Apple Podcast, so a new episode will appear in your library every week. I would also really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review, as it helps others to discover this podcast. To find out who's on every Tuesday, please follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Travel Tales with Fergal. Stay safe and keep dreaming of future travels.
Travel Tales with Fergal.